Yes, welcome to the Gardening Club. What is the Gardening Club? It is a meeting that we host at ZC in order to hear more and improve engagement between open source projects working around the Zcash ecosystem. So the focus is on open source, and the focus is hearing from more other projects. And a bit of history, we started it last year. We've heard from a bunch of different projects, like, over a dozen. The first several meetings had really packed signups, so not every project that wanted to present was able to in each meeting slot. By the end of the year, especially by the holidays, there were maybe 3 or so projects signing up. And so this year we thought it would be something to experiment with to change the format. And so we still want to keep a slot for any project that's sort of an open mic for any project to sort of raise their hand and share about what their project is and what its status is and how they want to engage with the community, like if they have requests to try something out or help out with a problem. We still want to keep that in each episode, but we're also going to start doing like specific deep dive agendas that are, again, sort of focused around open source development in the Zcash ecosystem. So that's the new format we're going to try. Here's a general agenda. So announcements from me, and then we have sort of 3 planned presentations, and then we have the slot, the open mic spot at the end for project updates. And then if we have time for general Q&A, we can do that. We're also going to have some Q&A during each of these slots, so that it can stay topical. So let's dive in. Okay, so a few announcements about stuff coming up soon. So there's an arborist call in 2 days. Arborist is sort of the sister meeting to Gardening Club, where it's also about community development, but it's focused more on the Zcash protocol. So this one's going to be important because ECC wants to share more information about ZIP 224, which we're calling Orchard, which is the feature we're designing that's based on Halo, and also a few other zips that we think could get into NU5 that we wanted to share and discuss. We also sort of wanted to review and see if we can clarify what we see as the upgrade process based on previous conversations, and discuss all of those topics and get feedback on all of those topics. So if you're interested in any of those, please show up. There's a party today being hosted by Hudson as part of ETH Denver that's about privacy, and you're all invited. I don't have the details here, and if you're interested and you can, go look up Souptacular on Twitter. And then there's a ZIL call, and let's see, yes, that's in a little while, and that's going to involve folks from the Blockchain Association. So please come to all of that. And then there's a few just news tidbits I threw in here. So one big piece of news is that Jack Gavigan has left ECC and started at the Zcash Foundation as their new executive director. And then they've also hired OX Arbitrage, who's been working sort of as a grant recipient and a volunteer on Zcashd and Zebra for a while now. So that's really cool to see them getting more plugged in there. There's a really great Twitter thread from username Crypto Juju on Twitter asking, how did you get into ZEC? And that's great to read. I loved reading all of the responses, and there's a lot of different stories. Like, people have come into Zcash from different angles, so it's sort of illuminating. And then another sort of dynamic I've noticed in the past couple of weeks is there's the ZECpages board. If you're not familiar with it, ZECpages is a website where you can register a name with your Z address. And then it has this other feature called a board. And initially that board was just an anonymous board people could post to with Zcash memos. But recently people began making feature requests, and the developer tends to respond quickly to some of those feature requests. So there's sort of this increasing rate of requests and new features. And it's kind of fun to watch that dynamic and that energy. So those are some announcements. And now let's jump into presentations. Do we have Holmes here?
My host has stoked my video. I could start just to not hold things up. I don't have slides, and so it'll just be me talking, and folks can see me once the video is working.
Sure, let's do that.
Okay, cool. So let's see. So I'm presenting about ZOMG, which is a community elected grants committee that funds Zcash related projects in order to bring financial privacy to everyone in the world. My name is Holmes Wilson. I'm a co-founder of the chat app and Zcash wallet ZBay. And I'm also I'm speaking about ZOMG today because I'm a ZOMG committee member. In September, I was elected by the Zcash Community Advisory Panel, one of 5 people elected. At least one other ZOMG member is in the chat on this call, at least, or is listening here today, Hudson Jameson. And yeah, so since we were elected, we've been meeting bi-weekly. Our first goal for November and December was just to get up and running, to be able to accept grant applications and be able to start funding Zcash related projects as quickly as possible. And we're there. We've already funded a few projects, from some a small experimental project using Zcash in the context of a decentralized exchange in Brazil, to a very kind of significant, I think, for the ecosystem infrastructure project to maintain hosted light wallet infrastructure over the next 2 years. And that's run by one of the wallet teams in this space, the Nighthawk wallet team. So we are generally, the main reason I wanted to present on the call today, and maybe one of the main useful things I think about spreading the word about ZOMG, is to make sure that everybody who's working on anything related to Zcash or considering working on anything related to Zcash knows that there is funding available to pursue your project, and that we can turn around funding, that ZOMG, the committee, can turn around funding fairly quickly, that the process is very open and transparent, and that we are extremely eager to fund you and your work. And that this is overall just a really unique opportunity for funding in this space that's very lightweight and nimble, and flexible and ready to support you and your work. So if you're working in the Zcash ecosystem, and then if there are any projects in, any working relationships you have with other projects that are working on related things that could potentially integrate with Zcash or support Zcash in some way, we can help fund that too. So that's pretty much the outline. You can learn more about what we fund and our process on the ZOMG website, zcashomg.org. You can also follow a lot of our grant making discussions in the forums. We try to be transparent as possible. We try to keep all the discussion, or as much of the discussion as possible, in the forums. So you can see how we're engaging with applicants there, and be part of the discussion yourself and give feedback on applications. And yeah, I'm really interested in what questions people might have.
Thanks. Yeah, if you have questions, you can type them in chat, and I'll read them.
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking at the chat now.
One of the things that I know we're trying to figure out the screen sharing option. But one of the things, Holmes, that we've heard from people is kind of like, oh, when I start the application process, it seems so open-ended. I'm not even sure where to start. So it would be helpful to hear from you, and maybe even link to the what we're funding page, and also hear some of your perspective on, like, how does the committee think about, you know, how people are like pricing their project, or, you know, how should people go about budgeting their work. I know that there's been back and forth on that in the forum, and that might be helpful context if you're willing to share. But yeah, the What We Fund page, I think, is a great place, an overview for people who might not be as familiar with the project.
Yeah, so I just posted the link to the page, a link to the page that Elena just mentioned in the chat. That is a very simple wish list of things that we are interested in funding. It's not all inclusive. So just because something's not on that list doesn't mean we wouldn't necessarily fund it. I think it's really important for us to understand what someone's vision is and where they're going with their project, and to be able to evaluate it. But it doesn't, as long as it is related to Zcash. I mean, if you're interested and excited about pursuing it, I'm sure it has some value, at least to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be interested in it. So if it's exciting to you and related to Zcash, that it's worth applying. If you're not sure you want to put in all the work to write up a grant application, or you have questions about the format, please post in the forums. And if one of us doesn't reply quickly, tag us. There's a special section in the forum, in the Zcash forums, for grants. I can post a link to that now, or someone else can. Let's see. And yeah, about the second question, first of all, if anyone has that question and I didn't clarify it enough, please like jump in the chat and let me know, and I can add more detail. In terms of Elena, your second question, I think there's sort of, first, we're at a very, very early stage, so we don't have all of this figured out yet by any means, in terms of how much people should be, so to speak, charging ZOMG for their work. So I can say what my individual thoughts are as a panelist, or as a community member rather. But then I think really it ultimately comes down to what makes sense. We want to fund projects, we want them to succeed, and we want people to be incentivized to do this work. And so what makes sense for you in a general market context, assume that it makes sense for us too. So market rates for engineering talent in your country are a good starting point for how much you should be billing per hour. And just generally, you can have a look at the funding levels of other similar projects to get a sense, but there really, you should just apply based on what makes sense for you, and then we can, and I think you should expect that we'll respond with questions and questions about the budget, and other Zcash community members might chime in with questions about the budget if something doesn't seem right or reasonable. There has been competition between multiple grant applicants in the past on price, essentially, or at least something like that happened in the forums, and that's great. I think the community wants us to try to use their funds efficiently, and so we welcome that. But that probably won't be true for too many types of projects. So I think choosing something that makes sense and is sustainable for you and will make sense to us is the most important thing.
All right, any more questions? I actually have a question. How many grant applications have you seen? And I guess I'm more interested in sort of a wider number of like broader interest, whether or not a grant has been written yet. I'm interested in both. Is that kind of a confusing question?
Wait, the second question is broader interest is in like people being in touch about applying who have not yet applied. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so in terms of broader interest, I am trying to mention it whenever I talk to people in the space who are working on related things as a potential source of funding for their work, or that they could get funding for advancing Zcash in some way. I've had a few of those. I think all of us on the committee have had a handful of conversations like that in the course of our day-to-day work in other areas over the past several months. Most of the incoming we get, we're directing to the forums and to the grant application process. In terms of number of grants, I don't have it right in front of me now, so I'm pulling up the site. They are public on the Zcash Foundation website. Their grants, the grants portal of the Zcash Foundation, which I'll post a link to. Some of the grants here are, let's see, legacy ones. They're not all current. It looks like, oh, I guess you can't see. So I'm looking for the full list, but I don't have the full list in front of me, but it's on the order of, I'd say 6 to 10. And Hudson, maybe you know the number of the top of your head.
Holmes, you also might be able to share your screen now. I made you host.
Oh.
If that's necessary, but also feel free to not.
It might be for the next question. Right now there aren't the Zcash, sorry, the grants portal only shows 2 open projects. Or no, wait, I'm in the wrong section. So I haven't found the section of the grants page that lists them all publicly. But most of them, actually, the link I posted, the correct link is the link I posted to the forums. In that link, there is a subcategory called applications, and all applicants are encouraged to cross-post their grant application to the forums, and so you can see them there. And I can post a link to that. Were there any other questions?
There are questions not about Zcash OMG, but about Zoom and time zones, which I just wanted to note, even though it's a different topic. And I hope we can follow up on the forum on that, because I do really want to improve things on that front.
Oh, I also think you may have already answered this, but Elliot posted specific categories and whether React Native is still a general area of interest. Did you cover that, Holmes?
I didn't cover that specifically, but that's definitely in our wish list. In my other role as a developer of a Zcash wallet and an app that built in Zcash, I'd be really interested in work happening to make a React Native SDK for the general white wallet stack. So yeah, if that's something that you would, that you're in a position to contribute to, Elliot, or you know people who would, that work I think would be really helpful to the ecosystem overall. I certainly would, be really enthusiastic about that proposal were we to receive it.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Holmes. Sorry about the video thing. Still trying to sort that out.
No worries at all. It was fine for me. I'm sorry y'all didn't get to see me, but it's fine.
So I'm gonna reclaim the host, and then I think who's up next, Nate? Who should I bestow?
Brad Miller is up next to talk about Zip 224 and wallet usability.
Okay, Brad, I'm gonna make you host, give you the superpower.
I have the baton.
Yes, run with it.
All right.
Use it wisely.
Video working. Yeah. And hey, everybody, give me just a second. Find the right screen to share. All right. Okay, so Nate came to me and asked for me to share some of the thinking that we have here at ECC, specifically the wallet team, about usability, about some of the ways we're thinking about wallets and how they relate to Zip 224. I think I have about 5 minutes. This might take a little longer than that, so maybe it'll carve into question time, and if it does, we can always follow up somewhere else after the call is over. So we'll just roll through some of the things that we're thinking about. Some of these are like challenges we acknowledge that we just haven't really started looking at deeply yet. Some of them are things we're like very deep in the weeds trying to figure out solutions for. So this is really just to kind of give the community a view into, you know, how Wallet Team is thinking about ZIP 224. So these are really our primary UX concerns and goals around ZIP 224 right now. And there's both like the technical goals and challenges, but also a lot of pieces around like narrative and user interface. So, you know, I split these up in a couple ways. Some of the primary technical challenges we're really looking at are around the new address type the ZIP 224 would introduce. You know, obviously this introduces some interesting questions about managing multiple addresses and different kinds of wallets. So really figuring out ways and strong recommendations for community wallets to follow is something that we're interested in doing. I think it goes without saying seed continuity between upgrades is incredibly important. You know, if you have a BIP39 style seed phrase, that has to work, right? So making sure that we test through that and then support the libraries that we use in the wallets to make sure that that has good continuity. And then one of the interesting aspects that I think doesn't quite get, it's not as obvious, is this distinction between user experiences in single currency versus multi-currency wallets. You know, single currency wallets like the ECC wallet and the Nighthawk wallet that it's based on, or the other way around, Nighthawk wallet that's based on ECC wallet, you know, we can kind of do what we want in terms of user interface. It's one currency, it's all Zcash. When you start talking about multi-currency wallets like Unstoppable, they have user interface frameworks and libraries and components that multiple coins have to fit within. So understanding how to fit multiple address types and fund migrations and things like that into a multi-currency wallet just has different considerations. And then on the narrative and UI front, you know, this is all about users. You know, we're a very user-focused team. So when we start introducing these features like turnstiles and fund migrations between pools, it's really important to communicate to the user the benefits that they get from going through these pieces and also guiding them through that process to make it really convenient, safe, comfortable for them. We're really interested in surfacing the narrative around the removal of the trusted setup in ZIP 224 in a way that is discernible and like understandable for users. A lot of users don't know what this means, right? So it's like striking this balance between surfacing this net benefit versus you know, educating users about something that maybe they just don't really care about. Education about the changes across the board, meaning like in the wallet itself, suddenly one day there will be changes in their interface. They'll be introduced to these new concepts like fund migrations. You know, how do you really introduce them to those changes? And then I kind of, again, the single versus multi-currency wallet UI components, you know, I already kind of talked about in the previous one, but on top of the technical issues of like managing the multiple addresses under the covers in the wallet, there's also those UI components about how you surface those to users. So for the multiple addresses piece, this is one of the things we're tackling the hardest right now on Wallet Team. So like ZIP 224 does introduce a new shielded address type. So we're thinking in Wallet Team about ways that we want to tackle this problem. We've started tackling this problem first with a feature that's in research to move funds from a T address into a Z address. That's kind of our starting point for this fund migration journey. And we just want to introduce users and start getting product feedback on how this works and how people like it. As that becomes a little bit more developed, we think we'll take a lot of those same methodologies and then we'll shift those over towards the ZIP 224 sapling to ZIP 224 migration process. And then during this entire process, we want to run this term, so over the next few months, at least one design sprint specifically around multiple addresses, and we're going to try to invite developers from single and multi-currency wallets to come be experts for us, and you know, give us feedback, let us interview them. So we just want to really take those considerations into our multiple design phases. So this obviously will kick off a new turnstile. So people that have been here long enough, they remember the sprout to sapling turnstile. we have a history of doing these, but this one's going to be unique because when Sprout came up, there were no mobile wallets, right? So the history of turnstiles so far have been when Sapling activated in October of 2018, it initiated the first one. And as far as I know, it was the first of its kind ever in the crypto space, like kind of forcing people or having this distinction, I guess, between the two different pools, having this threshold. So ZEC Wallet with Aditya at the helm was instrumental in deploying this to the community, but at the time it was desktop wallet only. It was ZEC Wallet. I think ZEC Wallet Lite was still in development. So, he implemented this migration tool, which was super useful. And then ECC came along and we implemented another migration tool, which was kind of a long running process that was focused on preserving as much user privacy as possible with as little metadata leakage as possible. What we found was a lot of people moved funds from Sprout to T addresses to Sapling because it was fast and easy, right? So we learned a lot about what users want in this process. There's a lot of benefits to doing a turnstile, right? The audit of the monetary supply, but there are also the challenging UX components of, if people want to go through a turnstile, sometimes it's a long running process. If they just want to move their funds between pools, sometimes they just take their funds, move them to T addresses, and then move them to the new pool. We have different considerations on mobile. Primarily, convenient long-running migration processes are not possible on mobile. Like, you just cannot allocate those resources in the background on a mobile device. So we have to figure out ways that we can create a migration process that's user-centric and focusing on user experience around speed and convenience, while also preserving as much privacy as possible. And then another thing we're thinking about is our road to UX, like upgrade UX. There's a couple methodologies we started to use as analogies here. In the past, everybody remembers this. We used to have this whole process in software upgrades where, hey, there's a new version available, go to the website, download this version, hit install, go through the wizard, and it like either automatically replaces your old piece of software or you literally delete your old piece of software, right? I think that's more analogous to how current crypto upgrades happen. It's very manual, right? It's very like opt-in. There's a new paradigm that's happened, especially in continuous development web app systems, that's pretty much like refresh the page, right? You might just get a message says refresh the page, you get the new version. I think a challenge for us going into this NU5 upgrade is to really start defining a new paradigm for these upgrades for the average user, which should be biased towards the latter, like a refresh the page style experience, as opposed to this onerous kind of heavily involved upgrade process. And then we have to communicate in that upgrade process. There's some challenges, right? You have transaction finality and the time that takes when you actually move funds between pools, and then also the cross-pool compatibility. So once people move into ZIP224 addresses, they can't send back directly to a Sapling address. So communicating to the user why that is, some solutions for them, definitely some challenges we need to tackle to make that upgrade process feel more like a refresh. So we have a couple requests for community people. If you work at or know somebody who works at a multi-currency wallet, we have quite a few connections, but we're always looking for more. If you know them and you think they'd be interested in being kind of an expert for us in our design work, have them reach out to us. And I'll drop some emails in the chat. And then, we're always open for new strategies and ideas around handling this. We don't pretend to be the only people with great ideas here. We have a really talented team, but if you have ideas around strategies to handle these multiple addresses in ways that you think users would be convenienced, we'd be really interested to hear it. So, a couple key takeaways. Multiple address support is going to be challenging, but it also presents a really cool opportunity to redefine the entire upgrade experience around cybercoins and cryptocurrencies. Some pieces are really obvious, like seed continuity. Obviously, that has to work, but some are really nuanced, like what is the right balance between a migration tool versus the amount of metadata that those transactions may leak when put on balance with the user's experience and the number of users you can onboard into the shielded pool. So we're striving here to provide thoroughly researched guidance with high conviction that's very user-centric and net positive for the protocol and the community. Like, that's what we really want to do as the wallet team. Some of these pieces of guidance may be biased more towards the user. Some of these pieces of guidance may be biased more towards ultimate privacy. And then the other piece is that, we're really trying to do this as incremental feature delivery. So that'll allow us to adjust better to user feedback. It allows us to kind of take these features incrementally and say, what's working, what's not, what needs to be tweaked, what needs to be dropped, what have we just missed kind of in our thinking about this. So in doing it this way in the wallets, we think will lead to a better product and hopefully a better NU5 rollout. So I think that's it for me. Let me stop the share. I see a bunch of chats. What do we got? 16.
Kudos, Brad. I can call out the last question from Holmes was, is there a version of this that you've been discussing that would let the wallet app developers do a future upgrade without any changes other than switching out the SDK? And then he kind of like goes on with the second part two
Right.
of a two-part question where you give devs the hooks for address validations and minimize UX changes.
Right. Yeah. So let me make sure I understand. So Holmes, I guess the question you're asking is there a piece of this that we're thinking of, the upgrade from sapling to zip224 is like all the APIs remain the same, and then maybe like the sapling APIs change to kind of a deprecated version? Is that kind of what you're saying, to where it, like, you just swap in the SDK and suddenly everything works? Is that kind of the question, I think? Yeah, I think that would be ultimately great. I'm not sure if it's quite practical to be that easy. I think it's going to be a little bit more like an API v1 versus an API v2. Like, I don't love the idea of ripping out, say, the old functionality of sapling and making that now broken, and then dropping in on those same API calls the zip224 pieces. I think what I would rather do is maintain kind of the v1 of the API as sapling, and then overlay almost the identical calls with zip224 components. And in that way, I think you have a lot of continuity while still having the developers like opt into those pieces. But we're open to pretty much everything at this point.
One
What
question,
else do we got?
This wasn't in the chat, but one question that I wanted to call out is, like, there's the forum, there's Discord, and then there's GitHub. And then there's also smaller groups, kind of, I know there's a developer group on Keybase, and people kind of like hang out where they prefer to hang out. Where does the wallet team like to see the feedback? Like, do you guys have a preference for where you get these get feedback, or you'll take it kind of like across any and all channels?
I mean, we'll take it where we can get it. I think our preference is GitHub. I think our communication channels have really like kind of expanded out. So between Keybase and Discord and the forum, and you have all these places, it's really hard to condense all that information. So for us, it's nicest just to have it as, GitHub issues, suggestions, tickets, just because it's easy for us to kind of see that as backlog and then thread those discussions conveniently. So that would be my preference. We have a lot of different repos that are wallet specific. So if the question is very specific about a single wallet, like the Android SDK, for instance, go ahead and drop it in that repo. If it's more of a general question, just pick one and we'll kind of draw that context.
Great. Any other questions from the audience?
Yeah, I'm loving Holmes' follow-ups there, and I totally agree, Holmes. Like, we have to be really rational and self-aware about development cost and the relative business case for integrating Zcash in these wallets. So I 100% agree. And I think you and I really share that perspective, like especially these multi-currency apps. This is one of N, right? So this integration effort is one of N for them, and it's unique. So, our goal is to make that as easy as possible. And, it's an iterative process to figure out what that is. Unstoppable has been a great partner for us in figuring that out. They've contributed a ton of feedback back to the SDKs. So like when we get into the specifics of like API naming and like say API versioning, really I think we'll just listen to what people want. You know, we're not terribly opinionated about those pieces. We just want it to be as convenient to upgrade to as possible without breaking things.
All right, thanks, Brad.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have Hudson talking about Ethereum development.
Hey, thanks, Nate. All right, I think I'm gonna start my video. Here I am. And also share my screen.
Can you, you might plan to do this, but can you contextualize a little bit about why are you talking about Ethereum development at a Zcash open
Yes,
source meeting?
absolutely. So
Thanks.
basically, yeah. So this is just, yeah. So just to give a little bit of context to this, there have been people in the Zcash ecosystem who have approached me because I do a lot of stuff with Ethereum Foundation and with Ethereum community initiatives. And I think that it's important to cross collaborate across ecosystems and to learn from one another. So I'm kind of just going to really quickly explain how Ethereum does development coordination. This doesn't touch the broader subject of making a good community or making a cohesive community, but it does kind of cover what Ethereum does and then tries to make some suggestions for Zcash along the way a bit. So
Okay. Oh,
yeah,
Hudson, also just a time check. You have about 10 minutes. Is that going to work
sure,
for
that's
you, do you think?
perfect. That's plenty of time.
Okay.
Yeah, I might even be a little shorter than that. My slides, there's like 10 slides, I think, and I'm skipped through them pretty quick. So yeah, I've been with the foundation, Ethereum Foundation, since 2016. I spoke at ZCon 0 about governance, and then I've been on the ZOMG with Holmes and a few other people on the committee since 2020, end of 2020. So that's kind of a background on me. I do a lot of stuff within Ethereum, including like the core dev calls, which are equivalent to the arborist calls. Um, so let me just tell you what we're going to walk through. All core dev calls, Ethereum Magicians Forum, who the Ethereum cat herders are, and what the ETH R&D Discord does. So the Ethereum core developers call is called the all core devs call because of what a chat room was named about 5 years ago, whenever they first started these meetings with only about 10 people in one organization. It happens every other Friday at 1400 UTC. The video recordings are all on github.com/Ethereum/PM. But basically every 2 weeks we have a Zoom call. It used to be on Google Meet, but then it kind of got too big and unmanageable. So we started using Zoom. Um, then after we finish the recordings, they go immediately up to YouTube. We have live chat if people have questions. They're all listed again on this link. I put the links to these slides in the forum in both places that talked about today's meeting. So if you're interested in any of the clickable links here, it's going to be in the Zcash forums under today's meetings for the Gardeners call. The Fellowship of Ethereum Magicians forum is kind of like the Zcash forums. It's except it's dev focused on EIPs, which are equivalent to Zcash zips. There is also an ETH research forum, which is for more abstract future stuff that isn't an EIP format. And so that's the Ethereum Magicians forums. Along with the core dev calls, the Ethereum Magicians forums are kind of the place to put long form content on the stuff being discussed in the all core dev calls. The Ethereum cat herders do a few different things. This was founded by myself and a few other people back in 2019. And we do communication coordination. We kind of realized there was a lot of gaps in the ecosystem when it came to organizing calls, taking notes. All the core dev calls now have notes that are posted on the GitHub repository for the last 4 years. So if you don't want to watch the whole video, you can just skim through some notes, including a summary that's usually at the top of what decisions were made. We found that really helpful for the community. We also do things to look over how to improve the EIP process, organizing community calls, and a special series called Peep and Eep, where we go over specific Ethereum improvement proposals and have the authors come on and talk about them in a YouTube series. That's a more recent thing that's starting to grow in popularity. We used to have all of our core developers and protocol low-level developers chat on a Gitter channel, but now we are on a Discord channel. The reason for moving to Discord is because that's where most people are. We had to kind of wait for the trend to set in because Gitter doesn't allow for sub channels. It doesn't reply for, or doesn't have replies or emojis that are that broad. There's a lot of good reasons. There's also not bots on Gitter to moderate. So we decided to move to Discord, and that's helped us with a lot of cross collaboration. This is the PM repo. Like I explained on the issues section over here, that has the agendas for every core dev meeting. There's also a chart with all of the recording notes, agenda, and recording videos for each meeting. There's also the equivalent meeting for Ethereum 2.0 development, which is just kind of an upgrade to Ethereum 1.0. And if you go to my website, I have 2 blogs about Ethereum network upgrade history and core developers. Major thing I forgot, I've been talking to some people across multiple Zcash entities and multiple community members. And what I'd like to do, because right now communication that is non-long form is very fragmented, is to start a Discord server called Zcash R&D that would house all of the Zcash developers working on the protocol. It would be a developer only chat in that anyone could join and talk about developer issues, but there wouldn't be any politics. There wouldn't be any community things except maybe a channel that just announced community events and the arborist calls. It would be all about coordination and roadmap of the protocol at protocol and maybe application layer specs. So like mobile wallets would have a channel, Halo would have a channel, New5 would have a channel. There'd be all kinds of stuff for people to go on there and experience. And that's what I'm hoping to start soon, maybe even this week. I'm coordinating with a few people to get some more feedback, especially from ECC and the Zcash Foundation, who've generally so far been pretty happy about this, because right now there isn't a good amount of cross collaboration besides the forums when it comes to communication for like quick questions and stuff like that. So yeah, thank you. I'll take 2 minutes of questions now.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, that was a great overview, and that's exciting to hear about that chat system.
Yeah.
I'll join it.
Sweet. All right, is there any questions? If not, we'll move on. Otherwise, yeah, I think actually, you know what, let me give time back because we have at least one more person, right?
Well, the next section is an open mic for any project that wants to give an update, which is sort of that's what Gardening Club used to be, and we want to keep that. So
Sure.
good
All right.
slot.
Well, I'm done. If y'all have any questions, find me. Twitter, my DMs are open. I'm Souptacular on the Zcash forums, and I also check there a lot. Hudson at hudsonjameson.com is my email. The rest of my contact information is on my website. So thank you all so much.
All right, thanks. So let's see, for this part, I guess folks are going to raise their hands virtually, speak up in the chat if you have any open source project in the Zcash ecosystem that you want to share about.
Nice. And I'm seeing people are raising their hands. So
All
just
right.
as I allow you to talk, maybe we can go in the order Chris, Elliot, and Michael. Or you should all be able to talk now, but don't all talk at once.
Okay. So I'm Chris Maddycomb. Can I share my screen?
You can. Let me make you, I should be able to promote you to a panelist. And now I should be able to make you host. Okay. Now you should be able to share your screen.
Okay. I can't start video yet, but maybe I can share my screen. Yes. Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you, and I see a desktop. Can you hear us?
Well, I can't hear anyone else on the call, but I'm going to go ahead under the assumption that you all can hear me.
Yep, you sound great.
So let me just see if there's something about. All right. So I'm Chris Maddycomb. I work on the Zcash core protocol team, but I also have been moonlighting, trying to create something new with respect to how people can work together. So as a bit of background, over the years, I've worked in a lot of open source projects. And one of the amazing things about the open source community is that you don't really have central authority. Everyone is working on something that they're interested in, and collaboration sort of comes naturally. And when you're working with a group of people who are all sort of pulling in the same direction, then great things can happen. So I've also worked in a lot of startups over the years, and the hierarchical nature of startups and the fact that where early founders can benefit is something that's annoyed me. And so I've tried to create something that is an alternative. And it's called an AFTalk. An AFTalk is a bottom-up organization for working on things kind of in an open source fashion, but where you can work on things and get paid. So I don't have much time, so I'm just going to jump into, I had planned to do a full demo, but I think I have a couple other presentations coming behind me, so I'll have to leave that for a later time. The fundamental idea of an AFTalk is that everyone contributes and then everyone gets paid. Here's an example of a project where there are 3 of us who have contributed on it, and you can see that I have something ringing. You can see that that I've contributed almost 600 hours to the project. My partner Marco has contributed about 150, and a third contributor has just come on and has contributed about 17. And the way that it works is when revenue is received, revenue is distributed according to a function of the time that we each have contributed. So if we go to billing, we can construct a payment request. And when I construct a payment request, well, apparently something is going on with the screen share that is making this not work so well. But I should yield some time here for the other projects. You can see sort of an overview of the time that I have spent for the past several months getting this up and running. And if you're interested, we also have a Discord channel. I'd be really interested to chat with you. And this has been difficult since I can't hear any feedback from the other presenters, but I'll go ahead and yield the rest of my time.
All right, thanks, even though you might not hear me.
Who is up next? We have, can you hear us now, Chris? Okay, I'm promoting.
Now I can hear.
Oh, so weird.
Now that I'm no longer presenting.
Well, people dropped some feedback in the chat, including Holmes, and then I believe Elliot is going to go next, and then Michael. So those are our 3 presenters.
And also Mark Harris is raising their hand.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
So let's see if we can do like 2 minutes each. Sorry about this, but we're going over a bit.
I can do 2 minutes. I guess the first thing I'll ask is, can anyone hear me? My name's Elliot. Nice to meet you.
Yes.
Yeah, you sound
Can you
great.
hear us?
Okay. I can hear you and you sound amazing. Okay, so while I do the awkward screen share, I'm going to put the link to the site in here so everybody can check it while I once again figure out how to screen share. Let's see. Here we go. So can everybody see my screen? I'm hoping yes.
Yes.
So I keep it under 2 minutes. So I'm a Zcash fan, and I wanted to build something for the ecosystem. So I approached Ian Mears, who I'd met at a conference, and he put me in touch with Gareth. And they said, you know, there was a big need to be able to see the rates of shielded adoption in the ecosystem in a way that was live. It didn't have to wait for a PDF to come out with a report or something to be posted in the forums. Everybody could look whenever they wanted, you know, at something that was being updated 24/7, 365. So, you know, I'm a full stack dev. I work with React a lot. I was the person who asked the React Native question earlier. So I dived in, I built the tool. I launched it, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point. And right now it has all Zcash data fully shielded, as well as transparent and migration, all types of transactions up to a year in the past. And you can look at year, month, week, day. I'm about to launch, I think probably if things go well later this week, an update that will allow us to look at historical data all the way back to day one in 2016. It also has, you know, some easy stuff like it's got network information. It also has a way to, you know, look at the recent non-shielded accounts that have been active, so you can see what they're doing. But basically, this is what it is now, and what I hope to do in the future is just to continue to expand this as kind of like a, you know, one-stop, mobile-friendly analytics dashboard for the cryptocurrency. So to that, you know, I'm very actively soliciting, you know, if people have things, features that they'd like to add, please let me know. I work on this probably almost every day, so I'm always adding new features. It's also open source. It's up on Git if anybody wants to implement new features themselves. That would be amazing. So that's zdash.info. And I guess I can give back any other time because I know that we're running low on time. But yeah, I'm excited if anybody has any suggestions or would like to participate in the project. Always love collaboration and collaborators. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Is there, is the source code public?
Yeah, you know what? Right now, I don't want to step on the other person's time, but I will
Okay.
drop in the chat the front end and back end repo and invite
Thanks.
folks to take a look. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Elliot. I know I'll reach out to you one-on-one because we had some questions about the site, but really awesome work. And now I think, Michael, you're up next. And then after you, we should have Mark.
Cool. Outstanding. Let's see if we can get this all set. Boom. You see my screen? You hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Outstanding.
I see.
Oh, and there he is. All right, let's rock and roll. Okay, so ZECpages. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. ZECpages is an example of what I would call a blockchain-powered MVC app. It's kind of a full stack app that sits on top of a global data state. That's where Zcash comes in. It's powered by one Zcash address and memos that come into it. You can copy that global data state from anywhere with this Zcash view key. Let's swap to night mode because the view key looks cooler there. There it is. Lovely. If you have that view key, you can get the same data that I have to power this board. Why is that important, you might ask? One cool thing is it's durable. If my board got shut down, you can still run your Zcash wallet and it's sitting there on the blockchain. Nice. Additionally, it's replicable, so people could make a competing UI that works from the same data state. If there are filters on that data state, if their app looks better than mine and you use it, then they have the users. Interesting as well. There's also an opportunity for competing censorship strategies around this auditable data source. So I've censored a couple posts, outright hate speech and posts that are my own technical errors. I didn't think they added a lot to the app. I deleted them on like my user interface level. They still live on the blockchain. You can go see them. That's kind of neat. Auditable social media censorship, I would submit, is pretty cool. I think I heard Balaji refer to this as blockchain MVC in an interview with Ryan Selkis from December. And I was like, whoa, that's what's going on with ZECpages. So there's also a number of cool features, and I want to give a big thanks to Nate for the shout out on the energy and the interplay between users and I on the feature request board. It has been a ton of fun. I feel the energy probably more than anyone, and it's been a great ride. So I'd love to show you what I've built based on user feedback. I will try to make it quick. There's a lot to go over, but I will try to prioritize and make it quick. So these are normal posts. These are all Zcash transactions. These are likes. This is a new feature. You can like a post. I want to give a thanks to Aditya for suggesting that I use URIs, because usability with crypto, as Brad noted, is super duper duper hard at every level. And URIs smoothened the process a lot more than I ever thought possible. I sort of thought, okay, cool, convenience, whatever. When I started using them with the idea I can copy this to the clipboard and just dump it into Zec Wallet and everything's populated, all of a sudden it's such a frictionless experience to like a post that's actually caught on. Since I added likes at the start of January, we've had about 400 likes. In the history of ZECpages, we've had 1,100 posts. That's pretty neat. Additionally, we now have a little more metadata sophistication based around posts. If you include a replies adder, there's also a directory of users on ZECpages. Let's check out this user's replies adder. Oh, hey, it's Zcash VR. He has one post attributed to him. Because this is a push system, this is only someone who included this Zadder. Anyone could do it. It's alleged. Some level of feed curation, I think, is called for. But at this point, you have what's essentially a Twitter feed for that user. So let's go check someone else out. I think, yeah, James Joseph has quite a few posts. These are all his posts. That's pretty neat. So replies are also new. You can reply to a specific post. They show up as nested. That hasn't caught on as much. I think a big part is it's slightly more complicated than a like. You have to put in the syntax and then type in your reply. I made a UI here for typing in a reply, which is pretty sick, but I haven't gotten the base 64 encoding right for emojis. So it actually corrupts the string on the way into Zec Wallet. That's on the to-do list. Okay, there's also boards. There are specific boards similar to subreddits. This is Confess Jam, something I think James did. And the idea is this is where people could confess their deep, dirty secrets. These posts show up in the main feed, like r/all. This is the sub feed. It's a board. It's Confess Jam, and it has its own posts. There are referrals, which hasn't super caught on. It's also complex. Oh, yeah, I should say, this is way cooler than anything I was going to say. Likes are kind of a feedback loop to users. If I like this post, it costs 10 cents because it's a Zcash transaction, and that's what I charge is this. $100 Zec, 10 cents post. Easy math right now. So if I were to like this post, that bit of Zec, that 10 cents comes in the back end. I split it in half, and I would actually send half of it to this address, the replies adder. So all of a sudden, if your posts are getting liked, you get more payments. Let's see. I changed the mechanics on the pinned post to decay, right? So it's been up for 10 days, and it decays at a rate of 5 Satoshis a second. So this space becomes more affordable in an effort to incentivize freshness. I tried to boost the signal of the board in general by making a couple new products. One is ZECpages Raw. This is a Twitter bot that retweets every ZECpages post with a link to it. They're not long enough to necessarily fit a tweet, so it might not be the whole post. And additionally, there's an RSS feed that you can add for a lightweight way to keep up to date with ZECpages on the go. What else do we have? We have custom emojis. This is delightful, and I want to give a big shout out to our new UX person, Nooner Vision, who is part of the overhaul to the look and feel. Her work has been tremendous, and she's in the database of users. Definitely contact her for UX. It's been a true boon on both night and day modes. I'm quite pleased. Okay, I'm dropping one big one on you. This is a new feature. It's experimental. Everything about ZECpages is super duper alpha. So if things go wrong, reach out to me, my Twitter. I'll post my GitHub issue tracker. But here's a brand new one, and I hope you'll like it. Let's go check out a user. Test user 422. When someone like this shows up, you know Mikey's cooking up something big. Here we go. Test user 422. What if I want to subscribe to this user? What do you suppose that is? For a fee of $6 a month, you can subscribe to a user, and you can subscribe for any number of months, similar to Substack, right? And then, I hope I'm logged into an account with this. Yeah, good, I have a subscriber. So here's test user 422, who was kind enough to subscribe to me. I have access to a publishing interface here where I can say, hey man, I hope you like the feature. You users make this all worthwhile. Less than 3. And I publish to subscribers. That goes to the back end, grabs all my subscribers' Zatters, and sends them a memo on the Zcash blockchain in a small transaction. So in this way, you have this distribution network that's powered by Zcash. If you wanted to send richer content, that could be a link to something that you've hosted in this metadata. In future, if this catches on, if this isn't like weird and people like it, I would love for this to be something richer, similar to Medium, where you can put images and stuff together. Maybe it's hosted to IPFS and then delivered to people. So if anyone wants to try this, it would be super cool to have people try this. It's brand new. I rolled it out this morning. We will see how it goes. And thanks to every single user, because this adventure is so cool. I'm so sorry. I know that was way over time. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you, Michael. That
Thanks.
was awesome. I'm going to quickly hand it over to Mark, and you should be able to have the floor now. Mark?
All right, guys, I'm only going to take 30 seconds because I'm piggybacking on Chris Nuttycomb's time. We were meant to make this presentation together. And there was a couple of key points that he just didn't get the chance that I was supposed to make. One is that this project is ready to use right now in some applications, including grant distribution. And to Holmes' question, yes, we have ways of dealing with fixed costs and recurring costs. And thirdly, this is really a way of getting ZEC into the community. And I think that's the real big point. This is a way to get people to take ZEC for payment. And the last point is I'm also working with the philanthropy communities as a way to use this tool to distribute to Global South, where we have so many issues distributing philanthropic funds because of corruption. We want to be able to get money into people's hands directly, and particularly crypto into people's hands directly. So we also have proposals in that space to help us explore the legality and the legal wrappings for this type of distribution. So those were the key points that Chris really just didn't get the chance to make. We have a lot of momentum. We have something that's ready to use right now that we could get set up for people. And what we're looking for from the community the most right now is people who have projects that they would be willing to consider this manner of working together and this manner of funds distribution as beta testers. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I love the open mic. We're going to keep playing with the format and tweaking it to make sure we keep iterating. So thanks for all of the input and feedback and participation, everyone. It's been a great meeting, and I hope to see you next time. So see you all around. Bye.